Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. And I'd like to call the meeting of the Tucson Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code Committee to order. Could we get a roll call, please?
Amy Oliver,
Present.
Dennis Kuhn,
Here.
Craig Barron,
Present.
Robert East,
Here.
Buell,
On Zoom.
Januzzi.
Newsy, Daniel Slater,
Here.
Alex Zimmerman.
Here.
It appears we have a quorum. Madam Chair.
All right, perfect. So we can go ahead and get started. And let's go to item 2 on the agenda, which is the approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was the January 29th of 2025. We are voting to accept the legal action report for that date. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
And then I'm sorry, what is your name?
Craig Barron.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Craig Barron to approve the minutes from January 29th. Do we have a second? Okay, and we have a second from Daniel Slater to approve those meeting minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Waiting for a couple of ayes or oppositions.
Aye.
Dennis?
I'll abstain.
Dennis abstains. I don't actually know what happens if we have an abstain.
You would have a 6-0 vote at this point. It would still carry.
Okay. Can we discuss it?
You certainly may. Yeah.
Do you want to
If there are
discuss
changes or
No,
not.
I just haven't studied it.
Okay, that's fine, okay. Then the motion passes. And can you clarify for me, what was our pass number?
6-0.
Okay.
With Dennis Kuhn abstaining.
And everyone else voted, Buell voted?
Yes, I did.
All right, just double checking, just want to be sure. It's a new room, it discombobulates me, sorry. Right, so let's move on to our next item on the agenda, which is an annual consideration of our chair and vice chair positions. And what I'd like to do is ask city or county staff liaisons to explain what that means to our group. That's what it is we need to accomplish.
That on an annual basis, the committee should review who you would like to be your representative chair and vice chair as part of the annual report that's submitted. You're certainly open to keep your current chair and vice chair, but it should be discussed on an annual basis.
Does everyone on the committee know who the current chair and vice chair are? That's the first and most important question.
Relatively new to the committee, Rob East. I know you are the chair. Amy, I don't know who the vice chair.
Dennis Kuhn. Okay, so for anybody who did not hear, because I don't know how well the sound is getting to online, my name is Amy Oliver. I am the current chair of the Outdoor Lighting Code Committee, and Dennis Kuhn is the current vice chair of the committee. And so I guess the next question of order would be if everyone on the committee is comfortable and confident with who is currently representing the committee as chair and vice chair. If you are not, we can discuss it. I guess first things order, we should take a vote and see if everyone wants to continue with the same representation. And if not, we'll have a discussion and then decide how to move forward from there. Can we do, since I missed the last one, can we do like a roll call style vote? Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, technically you would need a motion.
Oh, you're right. I did, I'm sorry. I was like passing it by. Can I have a motion to take a roll call vote and see if everyone is still confident with what we're doing?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Daniel Slater and to, I want to call it a vote. Go ahead,
We need
to
a second.
determine,
We need a second.
and we need a second for that. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, so we have a second from Craig Barron. So can we go ahead and do that roll call?
Yes. Amy Oliver,
I'm fine with it.
Say,
Yes.
please specify with an aye or a nay.
Aye. Okay.
Dennis Kuhn,
Aye.
Craig Barron,
Aye.
Robert East,
Aye.
Joel Januzzi,
Aye.
Daniel Slater,
Aye.
Alex Zimmerman.
Aye.
So this is discombobulating. Okay. And so it sounds like the motion passes unanimously, so we'll continue with the current chair, which is myself, again, Amy Oliver, and vice chair Dennis Kuhn.
Amy,
Yes?
just want to thank you and Dennis for both accepting another year's sentence as our chair and vice chair. Thank you.
I don't want to respond to that. Do you want to respond to that?
No, it doesn't need a response.
Thank you, Buell. All right, so we can move on to the next item on our agenda, which is to review the technical responses to our subcommittee inquiries from Fisher, Marantz, and Stone. So what I'd like to do is open it up first to let Charles and his team, I don't know if everyone is here, give us an overview of that and then open it up for discussion.
Hi, everyone. It's Charles Stone of FMS, Fisher Marantz Stone. We were given a list of very technical and specific questions and comments to respond to, and we have done so, trying to always make it readable for a larger audience, as we have tried to make sure we're still in the gathering phase of information and points of view to help us make recommendations on the code update. So that's an overview. Clayton, should I talk more or do you want to, what do you think?
This is Clayton. I think if you wanted to discuss any of your findings or responses for those of the other attendees, I think that would be appropriate.
Sure. Well, in general, speaking generally, there are issues of the spectral content of the light. And that is because blue light, what you and I see as blue, is more disruptive when it comes to its sky glow contribution. We mere mortals use the placeholder of Kelvin temperature as a shortcut to understanding the color of light and therefore its contribution to sky glow. Sky glow is one of the nighttime, it detracts from the ability of any of us to see the sky, and particularly our very important astronomy community around Tucson. It turns out then that using sources that are 3000 Kelvin or warmer is a good placeholder for choosing sources to use all around the city for any use outside, parking lots or residential, doesn't matter. the warmer it is, and we measure that when you go to the Home Depot to buy your light bulb, there's a little graph on the back of the bulb, of the cardboard box, that will tell you it's warmer or cooler, and the warmer sources are better. And there's no dispute about this. It's well understood and well agreed to. And so about a third of the responses that you have there point by point to the memo in question were related to color temperature. So that's the first piece. The second piece is we're trying to get our arms around recommendations that will lead to a code that is easy to understand and implement. Even if you don't understand it, it should be easy to implement. And that should be not just by professionals such as engineers or lighting manufacturers, representatives, people who sell lighting designers such as ourselves, but also by the general public. You should be able to read this thing and understand the rules. And so we're wrestling with how to cope with the concept of a lumen cap, which means that in all of the whole dome of sky over Tucson, we'd like to use only the light we need to in the ground so that we're contributing as little as possible to the problem of sky glow. So basically, everything we're trying to do in rewriting the code, helping you rewrite the code, is to come up with technical details and approaches that get this outcome. That's the outcome we want. And the basic strategy is warmer light and as little of it as possible to get the job done. Which leads me to the next little aspect of this. Maybe that was the middle third of the memo, and the last third is talking about how we accomplish that and what does it mean. And we accomplish that by controlling the light that comes out of light fixtures. So when you light a parking lot, light your parking lot and don't light the neighbor's lot or the street. So design the lighting using fixtures that put the light where you need it. Now that generally results in lower energy consumption, and it results in fewer lumens bouncing around and getting into the sky. And of course, the easiest way to prevent lumens from going up is to shield them. You might think of every light fixture as being asked to wear a baseball cap so that light doesn't go up. Obviously, if you're lighting a parking lot, you only need the light down. You don't need a light up. And the same is true for many other applications, pathways, roadways, and so forth. We already do it in Tucson on roadways. All the new light fixtures that light roadways are at the warmer end of the spectrum, and they're full cutoff. They light downward. And so what we're proposing is to just, and the commentary in that memo that we made in that memo is to try to gather all this together so that when we make specific recommendations in the code, we're going to accomplish these things. That's it, I think. Clayton, more?
I think that was a great description.
I just go on and on. You have to stop me because I'm very excited about it, and it's a really interesting project because you have it. Tucson is unique. There is nobody else in the whole U.S. that has a thriving metropolis, albeit smaller, with this astronomy community and this tremendous resource. Anyway, there I go on. Okay, I'll stop. Thank you.
I have 1 million people in Tucson.
So this is Clayton. I also just wanted to let you know the microphones work very, very well in here. So even quiet talk in the corners would most likely be picked up on the transcript, just so everyone's aware.
Promise not to
We're
swear.
just talking about the size of Tucson. So what I'd like to do is open it up to the committee if you have additional questions for Charles, or if you have comments on the information that we have received. Now is a great time to be asking those questions, making those comments.
Okay, this is Dennis, and I guess I need to jump in. So my first question is, where did all these questions come from? Well, they came from me. I'm the one that put this list together, based on what we've done on our subcommittee, trying to look at the changes that have happened in outdoor lighting since the time the 2012 code was put out, and where we're at today, and the fundamental shift being the change from a majority high pressure sodium to a majority LED light source. And I just don't feel like I got any answers at all from the subcommittee that really address that issue, because I am of the opinion that 3000 Kelvin LED is in no way equivalent to high pressure sodium with regard to how much blue light is emanated from the light source. And the result being that in what I see talking to people in the electrical and lighting business in general is the idea that somehow 3000 Kelvin LED lights are an equivalent replacement to high pressure sodium. I think it's understood it's not equivalent to low pressure sodium, but it's essentially an equivalent replacement. And so we don't need to do anything with our lumen caps, because changing to LED isn't really making a difference on outdoor lighting. I believe it is making a difference because there's with SkyGlow, because there's more blue light. I was hoping to get more quantitative feedback if there was a way we could somehow rank these light sources. I tried to do that already in proposals to the code. We did get blowback from public comments and to some extent internal comments that it does complicate things somewhat. But using our current method of having lumen caps, adding a multiplying factor to the various light sources could allow more lumens to be used if people use the better of the sources, and could have the effect of restricting the ones that are creating more problem with the SkyGlow. So I just feel like I didn't really get any quantitative answers at all. I got generalities, which I think most of us on the committee already understand these things. So I don't feel like we really got any help. And it seems like in our subcommittee work, where we've really been hung up is trying to deal with what the lumen caps should be, and should the numbers be smaller than the current lumen caps, and how much smaller. And that's where I think we need that help. We didn't get it.
Clayton, would you like me to comment on that, or?
Yeah, Charles, this is Amy. Please feel free to answer. I think Dennis has asked a really good question.
Oh, yeah, so do I. First of all, Dennis, most of your, I agree with, I think, I'm always afraid to say 100%, but you got it all right. You're right about all that, everything you said. There may be a couple of details in there. In terms of quantitative response, did you go check out that link to the DOE site? It's an excellent link and you can find rankings of all the sources and the multipliers. It's all there. All the data is known, and your summary is correct. The 3000 Kelvin source from an LED, most of the LED, and everyone is different from every manufacturer, by the way, is more. There's more in the blue than there was in the old high pressure sodium, which is what we all know, we all remember it as a very yellow amber source. So that's correct. Remember, our brief is to look at the whole of it. Lumen cap is only one aspect in the code, and we're supposed to help you form recommendations around the whole of it. There are many other aspects in the code, not just lumen cap. In fact, when we came to it, we felt the lumen cap was not the best way to approach it, because lighting designers don't approach lighting that way. So while it's fine that Tucson is unique, it's really fine to have a unique lighting code. It would be different from every other place except maybe Flagstaff in the whole country. Lumen caps it certainly works in the big picture, but that's not how you design a project. So it requires the consultants or engineers to go back and design it twice reiteratively. You have to design it and then you have to count all the lumens. And then if the lumens are high, you have to go back and design it again. You might have to tell the parking lot guy your parking lot's too big. You have to approach the project differently. So it was one of the things we are considering, but it's not the only approach. As I've gotten more informed about where it came from, how it's being used, how the astronomers view this, I'm coming around to an understanding that holistically there's a place for this in the code. So I'm not giving you pushback. I'm just trying to make sure I come to a full understanding what's the best way to go. Because your comments about the 3000K having more blue content than the high pressure sodium are absolutely correct. And one of the reasons it was a big fight to get the manufacturers and the civil engineers who design streets, roadway lighting, to even go to 3000K, because until the last few years, the number of lumens coming out of a 3000K LED were fewer than a 4,000 or 5,000K. So it took some persuasion to get us to, it was a great victory, you might say, to get us to 3,000. Now, some of us, I'm among them, think we should be pushing lower. And I think you and I agree on that pretty quickly, Dennis. So right now we have a Tucson City streetlight standard of 3,000 Kelvin. Now, I've been told there was a study done some years ago, and I was told the contribution to sky glow from street lighting is only around 20%. Still, that's a significant piece of pie. So when we start talking about all this, that's why I started with color temperature when I gave an introduction to what's in this memo. Anyway, I wanted to just clarify a couple of those things. Thanks, Dennis.
All right, if you don't mind, I think I know Rob has a question right here. Rob, do you mind if I ask mine because it's tagged onto this, or do you want to go first?
I have some after Dennis spoke, so
Go right ahead.
you go and then I will go after you.
Okay. Charles, could you clarify? You said something while you were responding to Dennis that gave me pause. You said really Arizona, like Tucson and Flagstaff are the only places with a lumens cap, except that I have myself done a rather extensive international study, and I would argue that that's not true. So
You would know more about it than I do then. Okay.
every jurisdiction pretty much has a lumens cap. So I want to make sure that we're all using the same kind of information in the same base. So can you tell me how you came to that conclusion, that it was really limited to just a couple of jurisdictions, and what is it you need from me to help give you clarification to what I see?
We've never run into it working all over the world. That's number one. We never ran into lumen cap before. I never worked in Flagstaff. So I never came upon this. When we did the research and I got with the darks.
What I'm saying is every single state, and it's also international. So that's why I'm asking you. They have them in Utah, they have them in New Mexico, they have them in Arizona, they even have them in New York. Schenectady has it.
Well, you've definitely corrected your consultant. So I didn't know that. But remember, nobody designs lighting that way. If you get 10 engineers in the room, that's what they'll explain to you. They may have to go back and count them, but that's not how you design lighting. And what is happening is between darkskies.org, conveniently located in Tucson, and the IAS, none of the guidelines to design exterior lighting mention lumen caps. So the municipal template that's just been released by darkskies.org and all the work that I've done for the last 9 years with the IES for RP43 about exterior lighting, we don't talk about lumen caps. I never heard the word lumen caps until I got to Tucson a few years ago. and learned how this code worked. So I stand corrected that it's not used anywhere else. I wonder if those municipalities will retain them going forward or not. And I think it's a worthy discussion. And as I said earlier, I'm coming to the conclusion that some form of this lumen cap is going to be useful and favored by all of us here in Tucson. I'm coming to that conclusion. How we get there is what we're working on here. Does that answer your question? But I do stand corrected. I'm not aware of it anywhere else. And until you just told me that, I didn't know that. And I've talked to what I consider some of the experts in the field of lighting on the subject. So you are an expert.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I'm going to recognize Rob East.
Thank you. Charles, to get back on that, I work with a lot of out-of-town tenants, and I do need to educate all of them on what the dark sky is, and we have it here in Tucson. It is very niche kind of sector that people in the general, I think, lighting world are not aware of. So I do agree with you on that. Number two, we keep talking about lumens and limiting. We don't talk about IES too much. And back to where you're talking about design, I think you start with a kind of a recommended foot candles and you work your way back from there. Right, Charles?
Not quite. You start, if you're an engineer or lighting designer, you have to be mindful of the IES codes and standard practice. RP43, which is a document I have worked on the last 8 or 9 years, is the current document that's about to be re-released again with a few more corrections. And that's where you will find in there, among other things, so-called foot candle tables for recommended illuminance levels. You'll also find recommendations for color temperature, which are warmer and warmer, much warmer than they were 20 years ago. So there's a lot of progress being made in the right direction for what all of us are interested in here. But you start there, I think. Well, you don't necessarily start there, but before you lay pencil to paper, you have to make sure that your design is going to be in line with IES recommendations. Because if somebody falls down in a parking lot or on a pavement, the expert witness who comes in, if there's a lawsuit, is going to refer to the IES practice.
Safety and
Practice.
ability.
Yeah.
And Dennis, in regards to what you brought up with limiting lumens, limiting kelvins, I think the rework of the outdoor lighting code is trending and going down from 3,500 to 3,000 or 2,700. So there's a reduction there. I've also recollect it was maybe a 20 or 25% reduction in the allowable lumens. Is that correct?
Yeah, we came up with reduced numbers. Maybe I should explain.
So just let me, so we're trying to reduce things.
Yeah, but
What I just heard
we
from
need to
you.
get those factors where they should be, and that's why I asked these questions, because I thought the multipliers that we'd applied to the old lumen caps were the things that we were getting pushback on. Were we trying to be too aggressive, lowering the caps? And I recognize that people were concerned about that, and yeah, that's what we were trying to do.
Because when you started your conversation previously, it just sounded as if you aren't getting any reductions based on you not knowing the difference between HPS and LED and having them weigh in on. That's what I heard from you. I don't know if others heard that too. That was my understanding of what you were trying to convey. So,
Well, what to reconvey what I'm trying to say. We presently have lumen caps, and the basis for those was at the time, belief that the majority lighting source was high pressure sodium.
This is 2010, Dennis. You should help people with context.
In 2010, but adopted around 2012.
That's right. It took us 2 years to do it.
So at that time, the predominant source was high pressure sodium. And what we're trying to do is adjust the numbers so that we're keeping lighting the same as what would be in 2012. In 2012, we had a particular lumen cap. We got to that point because we were taking lamp lumens, lamps installed in a light fixture. Not 100% of those lamp lumens get out of the light fixture. Now we're comparing it to LED, where the rated lumens of an LED light fixture that's published by the light fixture manufacturers is the light that is actually leaving the light fixture. So
Not always, not only sometimes, because you can add, if you add shields or lenses to it, then you have to apply reduction figures.
that's true, but if you take a basic light fixture specification from a variety of manufacturers,
Right.
Outdoor components, the basic fixtures, they're now telling you the light output of the fixture. Whereas previously, if we took, say, just an ordinary parking lot fixture, a shoebox with a flat lens on it, and we asked what the lumens were, well, the answer we were getting was the lamp lumens.
Right.
And
Although and I'm agreeing with you, and one of the reasons for that is that the fixture lumens varied, the percentage reduction varied depending on the type of fixture.
correct.
So you only really care what's escaping the fixture.
But we were regulating, limiting lamp lumens.
Right.
Now, someone is building the same parking lot and they're putting in the same amount of lumens, but they're doing it with an LED light fixture. The result is that the actual the actual amount of lumens that is coming out of that installed light fixture is higher than the amount of lumens that would have been coming out of that high pressure.
No, I wouldn't agree with that, because you don't design that way. You would design for the number of foot candles that you need on the surface. So you would choose a lower output fixture.
Charles, you're missing the point. I'm not talking about design. I'm talking about regulating the amount of outdoor light that's allowed to be used. And
I understand.
And you have to compare what we have. And people are designing to the lumen cap. I mean, you say nobody designs that way. I can tell you, people design to the lumen cap. They
Well,
say,
in Tucson, you have to.
yeah, what am I allowed to do? And then they use it up. So back in 2012, somebody used it up by putting in a high pressure sodium fixture, and those lamp lumens, 100% of those lamp lumens did not get out of that light fixture. We also had a lamp source that had more lumen depreciation compared to what the LEDs are doing.
And I would not agree with that. I would not agree with that. The lumen depreciation of a high pressure sodium and an LED, in practical terms, are almost the same, because designers are using numbers like 80% or 85% for lumen.
Then get us a documentation of that.
Well, I know that because that's what we do, and all the engineers that I talk to do that, so we can.
Excuse me, this is the chair. I just want to recognize that Buell had a comment. So that
Oh,
we
sure.
can-
Yeah, I interrupted because raising my hand doesn't seem to work. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dennis. I think all the evidence I've seen agrees with Dennis's characterization. If there's evidence in conflict, we need to see it.
And we're talking now about what is the lumen depreciation percentage that consultants use when they do calculations. Is that the point?
I'm not sure what you mean by depreciation. What we're trying to regulate is the amount of light scattered off the atmosphere above the city of Tucson and above the observatories.
Me too.
We need a way to have the regulation in the code guide people's actions in what they install and what gets inspected. And that's what we've spent the last 4 years trying to update for the change in technology. I thank the current subcommittee for doing their best to generate that. And if we can get help validating whether those numbers are right, that would be helpful, because as Dennis said, the intent is not to reduce people's ability to illuminate what they need to illuminate on the ground from what was happening in 2012, but to rather avoid an increase in that light and an increase in the scattered light above the observatories. That's the intent.
Completely agree. Yep.
Thank you, Buell. Are there any other members of the committee who have a comment or a question?
I'm not done.
Okay, Rob East.
Bingo. In regards to your responses, Charles, let's see, on page 3, in the blue text, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down, says the key is to determine how many lumens are needed to achieve the required light levels on target areas. Back here, I mean, I keep referencing IES. There's just not enough, to me, references to IES. It seems like a big debate where you have everybody wanting to reduce sky glow, and then there's not a lot of references. It's not code, the recommendations. So I think we should have more recommendations in regards to the IES standards in lieu of just the generalizations on sky glow.
Oh, I agree completely. Is there a question in there for us? I don't quite understand.
In code in Clayton and some of it's not referenced hardly anywhere. Well, what the recommended foot candles are for certain areas. But what I'm afraid of is we're going to go and have potentially more reductions and have issues because we're trying to meet these lumen caps versus what the IES says. It's a balance. And the whole thing's tilting towards dark sky and kelvins, and there's not much, to me, I don't see a lot in what we've went through in regards to safety and IES recommended standards.
Well, but remember the professional engineer or the lighting designer has to use the IES standards in the US. They don't really have a choice.
It's a recommendation. I don't think it's a true code, is it?
Nope.
Charles?
No.
Nope.
That's correct, but I wouldn't want to try that on the witness stand because it is the standard.
I agree, but you have a majority of people that are interested in it looking at one side of the equation. I would like to have a little more language in regards to the other side of the equation and what are recommendations, what should foot candles be and why.
Well,
okay. Question 7.
Sure.
Says many streetlights and floodlights have an accessory option to add 0 to 100% control to be dimming, etc. If you're designing to a foot candle per approximately 1 foot candle for IES, and you have the cutoffs 25, 50, whatever, then you're reducing that by 50%. If you go with a 50% reduction, therefore you have 50% of the foot candles that was recommended. So you're going out and beyond.
No. You have to take into account all the reductions when you do your calculation. So you're still going to get the 1 foot candle. So you'll be increasing the lumens in the source.
Those are just a few comments on what you published.
Well, I wasn't meant to be comprehensive in any way. I was just trying to answer the question. So I'm sorry if it wasn't enough, but we went over it quite a few times to try and make sure we answered your questions. Sorry that we didn't do it.
Necessary, Charles. Bill?
Thanks. Daniel and Clayton, is the memo or report that Charles submitted available online to the public?
Yes, this is Clayton. We posted it to the website for the Outdoor Lighting Code Committee. I believe it's titled Outdoor Lighting Research. I can double check on that, but staff provided a little bit of preface language for any of the laypersons that might be looking at that, and the abbreviations at the end.
That's great. Okay. And then I just want to say that I strongly support adding something at the beginning of the code to say that the code is not trying to encourage anyone to not go to the IES standards. I think it's possible to design to the IES standards and still meet with our code. I see Craig shaking his head no, but there are plenty of streets that have no street lights and they're still safe.
Well, Bill, that's a different question, because if you make someone responsible for designing the street and the interpretation of the code and the recommendations is that you need streetlights, they better put streetlights there or they'll certainly argue for them. I happen to agree with you, but you're stuck in the middle there if you're the consulting engineer on the job.
if I can ask everybody who's online, if you are talking to each other online, in between, please take a breath, so that I have the opportunity to recognize the speaker. Or make sure that others who are in the room in here have the opportunity to also speak. Just so you guys are aware that that's going on, because there are also other people you cannot see online, who may wish to speak as well. And so I want to make sure we're giving everyone that opportunity. And so now I'd like to thank Craig Barron for his extraordinary patience through the last 20 minutes and recognize him on the floor.
Well, back in the late nineties, early 2000s, when the astronomy community desired to have only low pressure sodium and designed the levels at about half of what we are now, Dennis, something like that. They certainly did not meet any IES recommended practices for security lighting. And the astronomy community knew that. I use the same fear mongering as you did, Charles, about slips and falls, accostations, all of that stuff, because the levels would be below IES recommendations. And I don't believe in that 20 years that I've been doing this or more, that I've seen any court cases or heard of any court cases where something like that was a fact. If anybody else knows of any of those cases, please let us know. And I think that lowering the levels below where we're at right now is fine to an extent, but where we're at now does not meet IES standard practices for security lighting. And it's different than regular parking lot lighting. If they deem a parking lot to be security lighting, those numbers go up. How much do they go up, Charles?
They're bringing new standards out now. I don't know if there's a recommended standard, but they could be 10-foot candles where you only needed 2 before. Yeah.
Times right now what is recommended by IES for standard lighting. And the roadways and everything else have all their different levels. But bottom line is the astronomy community is going to be affected severely if we do not limit the amount of amount of lumens on a property. Is that what you want, Bill?
I think you made my point, Craig, by going to an extreme, security lighting. IES standards are for all different types of lighting. And what I'm trying to say is, I think it's possible to light the steps on my front porch safely for people to navigate them and meet the standard and not cause an increase in sky glow.
Because
So I think,
yeah, an engineer may decide that they want their parking lot or the owner want their parking lot to have the levels of security lighting. And that far exceeds any foot candle, any lumen levels that we have right now. And
that's right. And all I'm saying is I was pushing back on the assumption that dark skies has to be in conflict with IES standards. I think there are ways of.
I never said
addressing.
that.
I didn't say you did. One of my
agree.
colleagues on the committee was saying that there was that he would like to see more discussion of IES standards and how we want to accommodate that. And I'm saying I actually support that. And I actually think it's possible to do that by helping to guide people with recommendations that keep us safe, keep us having sports parks with people enjoying the nighttime outdoors, and still fit underneath a lumen cap that was approved in 2012, but the effective lumen cap with the change in technology. That's all I'm saying.
right, and for 15 years, 12 years, whatever it was, I worked with the electrical engineers in this town to design hundreds of parking lots in Tucson using lumen caps. So it's possible. And all of those parking lots passed. So, for an engineer, Charles, if you say an engineer, it's too difficult for them to understand. I'm not an engineer. And so I was a manufacturer's rep with a visuals program. We could do this. And it was simple. And engineers used that program themselves because they got tired of seeing me.
Daniel or Rob, do you have anything else?
I'm good.
Questions? I want to give Alec an opportunity as well, if he has anything
Yeah, this is Alex Zimmerman. I'm struggling between the two because, I do agree with Charles is that, from an engineering standpoint, we live by the IES and the recommended levels. So we initially designed by foot candle levels and not necessarily lumen caps. Now we have to meet that lumen cap requirement. So we continue to have to thread that needle and find what is the right layout and then make sure that it works for the current calculations, right? And have to have that iterative process to continue to make sure that it works. So I guess my comment is that we just need to continue, like Buell's saying, and have a relationship between IES and lumen caps and try to figure out where that makes sense.
Right, thank you, Alex. So I'm going to recognize myself. I want to just make a point of clarification here, and then I'm going to make a suggestion because of everything that we have heard. So Charles brought up the Dark Sky International template for municipalities. So actually, I'm going to go in the backwards order. I want to suggest that we furnish that to all members of the committee because it does recognize IES and folds it in merely to look at as an example of where that has been folded in quite broadly. But the point of clarification I want to make on it is that I am looking at section 2.2 and it is lumens caps. So it still uses lumens caps. It does not call them that. So it just refers to them as a do not exceed. So I just want to suggest that we take a look at that and make sure it's on our list of task items to have everybody look at and see if there's something we can pull from it. Obviously, our situation, as Charles has pointed out, is unique. We have some unique things going on in that we are a city and a county. We have extremely rural areas that have to also work with an urban area. We have observatories that have to work with businesses. But there might be something useful that we can pull out of this. I will admittedly say I was told about it and I haven't looked at it yet. So I knew that this existed, but had not had a chance to look at it. And I think that we should now, given that I can see those sorts of similarities to the conversation we're having.
Excuse me, could I add a point of information that you might find useful? The Dark Skies municipal templates became available in mid-December, just a few months ago. So you're not behind the curve, you're on it. And the RP43 recommended outdoor lighting practice document is going to probably be released in final form after it's in public comment now in June of this year. So in both cases, this activity that we're all engaged in here is right on, you're right on time. It's exactly the right time to do it. I just wanted to, these are not, you haven't missed anything here. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for giving us that information and for also helping us get the information we need. I recognize a question from the audience. Okay. Dr. Green.
So, Richard Green, University of Arizona. I'm reinforcing something that Charles told us, which is that the DOE website has a table of multipliers, which is essentially a measure of visibility for the different spectral outputs of lamps. So that, he's pointed us to that. And, if you need to point back to something more authoritative than what John Barentine and I provided, which is not published with the same level of authority, then that's at least a possibility under the column called relative scotopic potential. It's not quite how we're operating. Our eyes aren't quite fully dark adapted in typical outdoor lighting conditions, but at least it's a published source that you could point to. So that, I think, was Charles' intention in answering your question about something quantitative.
Richard, if I could, thank you for that. And those charts and that tool is so interesting because what it really implies is that we should be looking at much warmer Kelvin temperature, because that the sources that it's evaluating, it's just like you said earlier, the LED 3000 LED is a lot more damaging to the night sky because of its blue content than the old HPS. So what we're being driven to is to consider even warmer sources. So Richard, that's a really interesting point.
Thank you. Everyone on we have a couple of new members of the committee. Are you familiar with what is being talked about in this room right now? The table that Richard has referred to? It's okay if you're not, we can send it to you. Okay.
Yeah, if you can send out a link, that would be great.
Chair,
Yeah.
this is Clayton with the City of Tucson. If you have specific links that you would like us to distribute, please provide it to us and we'll pass it to the community and the members so that we're all looking at the same documents. I have a couple with me here today. I do have the Dark Sky International Municipal Ordinance Template and User Guide from 2024. This, I believe, is what we're talking about. But again, I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same documents. So I'll pass these over to you, and then any other references that you would like to make, we can publish.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So we'll get everything to you. So you guys will be watching for an email from Clayton.
Yeah, and this is Alec. I'm assuming this is the link that was provided in the response from Charles, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And then one other item I wanted to bring up, Amy, I know you commented that there were other authorities having jurisdictions or municipalities that do lumen caps. From what I remember, and again, I'm a newer member, but Charles and his team did a report of other areas that were doing calculations differently. So I'd be interested to see some of those municipalities just to compare how they're doing it as well. If there's truly that many out there that do that type of calculation.
Alex, I'm just saying when you approach an exterior lighting of a site with pathways, landscape, parking, roadways for a corporate headquarters or a commercial development anywhere in the U.S., we're using the IAS handbook as our recommended practice for determining illuminance levels, minimum to maximum, all those ratios, et cetera. And that's just, there's no exception to that. That's the way we're always doing it. Even when we go overseas and work outside the US, almost always the people who've written the local codes came from the IAS or had members on the committee from the IAS. So I'm not suggesting there's yet a third way of doing it.
No, and I agree. I'm an electrical engineer, so that's what I do by trade. I do that type of design, but I thought once upon a time you were tasked to look at other municipalities to see how they did it, right? And that was a presentation that was done 4 months ago, right? So if there's other ones out there that are doing it based on lumen caps, maybe those are some that we should focus on because that would be more geared to what we're trying to do here in Tucson, if that makes sense.
Before I recognize anyone else, because I've got a couple of raised hands in here, I just want to let you know, Alec, yeah, I have that list somewhere. I'm looking at Dr. Green. Somebody has the list of those somewhere, and we'll give it to Clayton and he can distribute it.
Okay. And then maybe we can make a request for Charles's team to look into those areas as well. But just an idea. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I'm going to recognize Craig and then Buell. So Buell, I see you. Craig first. Okay.
Charles, how many of those designs have you done in communities throughout the United States and the world have as many observatories or even have any observatories around their community that you're designing to IES recommended practices?
Oh, come on. That's a easy question. The answer is 0.
Ow, that's confirmed.
Tucson is unique.
Yes.
I mean, you can make an argument about those folks in Chile, but I don't know how many telescopes they have. But you have 76 or 74 in 4 mountain ranges around the town, if you throw in Kitt Peak and a few others. So I'm well aware of the uniqueness of this. I'm also well aware of the complicated nature of the topic, and that's why I'm so excited about the project. So don't get me wrong, I get it.
All right, I'm gonna recognize Buell.
Buell Januzzi. Alec, I just wanted to make sure, I heard your question to Amy and Amy's response. I want to make sure you're understanding each other. I think you were asking, are there other municipalities where the lighting engineers design to the lumen caps? And I don't think that Amy was claiming that the lighting engineers are any different. She was just saying that there are many more cities that use lumen caps than just Tucson.
Yeah, and sorry, this is Alec Buell. I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
the response. I guess my direction was that is if these other municipalities have a governing body that have lumen caps like us, like here in Tucson, right? Going back to Craig's response is that there's not many areas like Tucson around the country, right? So
Yeah,
to
I
try
agree
to
with
find
you. Yeah.
anything like that would be helpful. And of course, most engineers will not design around that way outside of these, very unique situations. But if we can find ones that are more like us, we can see what other municipalities are doing.
Yeah, no, I'm supporting your suggestion. I just wanted to
Yep.
make sure the expectations were realizable. I also want to say, I think one of the things I've learned from today's discussion is we need to start getting some examples of well-designed, we've talked about this before, we need to get examples of well-designed lighting in the city of Tucson that meets the code and is as close to the IES standards or surpasses them as possible, so that people can have confidence that it's possible to be safe and have this code.
I did, but I need to formulate it, so.
Okay, you're gonna
Wait a
formulate
minute,
it. All right,
Buell, every project I've done in the city of Tucson and Pima County has been based on the outdoor lighting code for many years. It's not a concern of the code today. It's the concern of the new code and its reductions in kelvins and the allowable lumens per acre. So we've done many projects. Sure as Dennis says also that follow the outline of the outdoor lighting code for years. It's my concern is going forward, what sort of reductions and those ramifications will be.
Right, and I respect that concern. And what I'm saying is, I think we need to help work through examples with you to show you that the major reduction, the intent of the lowered lumen caps was to deal with the change in the technology of what's producing the light, and not to reduce the amount of light that's landing on the steps or the street, but to not inadvertently cause an increase in that. Some of us feel that if you don't change the lumen caps, you're actually going to see an increase in the light. And we all need to be confident that that's right. And that's maybe what Charles and others can help us work out. But that was the whole reason we were lowering the caps, was not to reduce safety, but to actually maintain safety without increasing the light that's going into the atmosphere.
all right. I see Charles has his hand raised.
I tried to behave myself now and put my hand up. One of the problems we're having together is that the technology of lighting is changing faster than we can build buildings. So the idea that we're going to be able to go around and find, I don't know, a dozen or some number of projects that are really using current technology and are going up right now and we can measure, I'm wondering if that's true. I mean, there's some big buildings going up near the airport and warehouse facilities and some other smaller facilities that I drive by, but the technology is changing so fast, and the way fixtures are being designed and put out there. So it's a cautionary note. It's going to be difficult to collect a good basket of comparables, you might say.
Chair. If I may, this is Clayton. Before we move forward to another topic, I would just also like to request if there are specific cities that we should analyze as a comparative for lumens, please provide any of those cities. If you recall last year, we did look at several cities not with the intent to find a match, but just a range of what other cities are doing. However, if you have some specific cities that the committee would like us to look at, please let us know and we'll provide some information on that.
And can we email that to you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
We get it in like a matrix saying, here's the amount lumens per acre, here's kelvins, sort of just a bunch of words, maybe some sort of spreadsheet or something that's easily comparable city to city. I know not all the data marks are going to be the same, but it should be just something that's easily shared and viewable for not only us, but also the public.
Yeah, we can talk about what that would look like to make it easy for you, so you're not digging through, thousands of pages of work, but also be able to pull that and just show side by sides. I think that might be very helpful. I know we have a couple of other raised hands, but what I'm gonna do for the sake of time, I'm gonna ask that we go ahead and move on to the two other items on our agenda, and then at the end, we can loop back if we have more items to discuss on this particular item, but we're not even quite halfway through the agenda, so we'll be aware of everyone's time today. So the next item on our agenda is our subcommittee report. Dennis, do we have a subcommittee report? Not really.
No. We,
The subcommittee was waiting for these answers and this opportunity to discuss the content within them before we could move on to other things. So we're still sitting with that same version of the draft that we had at the last meeting in January. And so then we'll move on from there.
Well, Amy, that was those questions that Dennis came up with was a
Right.
result of our subcommittee meeting. And, not understanding the responses, that therefore that we've kind of stuck not being able to do anything.
And here we are. Now we can move forward.
Chair, I will just say that we'll continue putting a subcommittee report line item on the agenda until such time that the subcommittee stops.
Until we're done. Until we're done. And so again, I'm going to stop and back up for 2 seconds with the subcommittee report because we do have our two newer members on the committee and make sure everyone is aware, and also the public attending today, that the subcommittee currently consists of myself, our vice chair, Dennis Kuhn, and Craig Barron. And so that is the subcommittee that has been working on the code revisions. So let's go ahead and move on from that to our 6th agenda item, which is purpose and intent, revisions to section 101.3. And that was provided via email to the committee members. It is also in the documents that were provided. And what I'd like to do is, Clayton or Dan, I want to turn that over to you so you can explain what it is you have done, and then we can discuss that.
Okay, this is Clayton. We reviewed all of the information and suggestions that we've obtained over the past year. We've heard several comments from different stakeholders. Anecdotally, and some of the call to the audience from previous meetings, and also emailed notifications that the purpose and intent should include some information about environmental considerations and a greater emphasis on safety and protection of nocturnal activities. So staff took the step to attempt to put all of those things into the purpose statement. This is quite a bit different than it was previously in its format and presentation, as well as different than the last draft. The last draft did include a new sentence in the purpose and intent statement, but it was mostly the same. So we just took the opportunity to kind of reword this in the best way that we saw fit, but it's certainly up for discussion. We're simply providing a suggestion here.
Well, reading over this, Clayton, some of it seems a little redundant. I mean, the same ideas are used a couple of times. Maybe we could make it a little bit more concise as far as, all the points.
I agree with Craig, merely because I think the kind of funny thing is the number one thing we said when we started this process quite heavy 3 years ago was that our code has too much content in it and it can be difficult to digest. And so anywhere we can reduce the code, I think it's all really wonderful content, but if we can reduce it down, That will just make it easier to read for the public.
This is Dennis. I have a comment. I know one thing that's added that we previously didn't address was about the health of nocturnal ecosystems, and I think there's some other similar wording to that. And that is just something that I think in subcommittee and prior committee work going, way back to I've gotten involved in it, which is now about 25 years ago. That just has not been anything discussed. And so there isn't, it may be an unintended thing that's happening by limiting blue light and reducing light levels, but it's not something that we've worked on at all.
This is Amy. Fortunately, that's why I'm here. Okay. I am the expert in the room for that. So we can address it, but generally speaking, anything that we do that reduces light pollution, that benefits astronomy is also going to benefit the natural ecosystem. I think that this change is really important and powerful, and thank you very much to city and county for recognizing the need to call that out and to acknowledge that we are having an impact on our natural ecosystem as well. The 2-line Reader's Digest is the Sonoran Desert is the most biodiverse desert in the world, but a significant number of our plants and animal species here, which impact our ability to eat food, are impacted by that blue light and by light pollution as well. And so by including that one line, just including that phrase in the code, that gives us the power to recognize that and then to start to make those positive changes. And that's going to be more about education. And as well, because even that downward lighting, we're not going to regulate people's downward lighting in that way. It's an opportunity for city and county to educate. Because again, like I said, Reader's Digest version, the odd clip is those flowers in your backyard. They sleep at night. They go through REM sleep when they close, and the bees sleep inside of those flowers. And so if there's light pollution, they stay open at night. So that's a consideration, but that's an education item. And so it's something that we really have to consider. But as far as the code goes, whatever we do with the code is going to naturally then have a positive impact on the ecosystem.
We talking about the next section, Clayton, 402.1?
We're not there yet,
Well, it's on
but I have.
So but it's the recommendations from, it just follows that, it's on the last.
But we're not there yet. Let me ask, friends, let me ask if, do you have comments, Rob, about 101.3?
Sure do.
Okay.
Sentence, all light should have a clear purpose, be directed only where needed, and be no brighter than necessary. There is some provisions in the code for a very small percentage of uplighting. Correct? That's not going away based on that sentence?
This is Clayton. So the intent of that statement is not to invalidate other sections of the code. So if the committee continues to maintain that some uplighting should be allowed, that statement in the intent, or that sentence in the intent statement would not invalidate those sections.
We're not intending to remove that.
Yeah, this is Dennis. So far, the subcommittee work has maintained the ability to have some unshielded light.
Okay. Thank you.
In most lighting areas. I think there may be some exception to area E1A.
That's correct. E1A is the most restricted
Yeah, but
area.
the urban environment that we live in,
Yeah,
primarily the city of Tucson, we will have the ability to have some uplighting.
yeah, and I've been an advocate of that.
Okay,
I
thank
know
you.
there was a proposal that perhaps we should go the route of some jurisdictions that have simply prohibited any uplight and require fully shielded fixtures for everything. And I still don't want to go there if we can avoid it.
Thank you.
And Clayton, I got an issue with the word necessary in that sentence that was brought up. It's a pretty subjective term. I think it needs to be a little bit more qualitative.
I ask you a question, Clayton, because we're getting comments on this. Do you mind if, first, I want to thank city and county staff for doing this and making these recommendations, and we're overall really, really good. Do you want to take that feedback back and work on those, or do you want to send that back to subcommittee and have us massage that out?
This is Clayton. Ideally, we would pass this back to the subcommittee and let you strike out. So the intent is to give you a comprehensive intent statement based on the feedback that we've received, and then pass it to the subcommittee to allow you to reduce as you see fit.
All right, thank you.
This is Dennis. I'll just say, in the little bit I've seen it, it doesn't give me any heartburn, and it reads nice.
It is nice. Thanks for including the wildlife. I should be cute every once in a while. Okay. All right, now, Craig, we can move on to item 7 on the agenda.
I had a question.
Charles, we're gonna back to 6. I
have a question. Dennis, when you said you don't want to go there, and you were speaking about uplighting and requiring lots of shielding, could you just elaborate a little bit? It would be really good information for me.
Sure. It really relates to our present lumen cap table, which is 401.1. And in option 3, say area E3, present lumen caps is 175,000 lumens per acre. And then the next line says limit on unshielded component 11,000 lumens per acre. So as it stands right now in the current code, our total lumens we can put in area E3 is 175,000 per acre. Of that, 11,000 can be unshielded lumens. Now, there's another provision that says that any one unshielded light fixture can be no more than 3,000 lumens. And that if you have individual light fixtures that are closer than, I think it's 3 feet to each other, then they count as one fixture. So what we're trying to do is limit the brightness of any particular fixture, but you could go up to 11,000 lumens per acre of unshielded in the E3, which is the urban area of the city limits. The proposed changes to lumen caps is maintaining the same idea, just with lower lumen numbers.
So that's good information. I would suggest that, remember, fixtures are much more precise these days in their flux distribution. So you could argue that you ought to reduce the amount of light allowed up even more. And you could lower the lumens per fixture from 3,000 to some lower number, maybe 1,000. You could, I think that's because all the astronomers really care about, and me looking at the sky, is how many lumens go up. So the more we constrain that, the better. And so I think we should talk more about this. I'm glad you explained it, because I'd say reduce as much as you can. And the low-hanging fruit for me is the shielded fixtures and uplighting. So that's my thought on that. We can talk more about it.
All right, thank you, Charles. Now we can move on to item 7 on the agenda. SkyGlow, reducing the maximum correlated color temperature, section 402. If you are still looking at the same document from 101.3, that's just on the back after that. So same document. If you're in the room and you have the hard copy, it's on the very back page. I will give you that again, Clayton. Same thing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we, in previous meetings, have talked about, and even the draft version of the code recognizes a reduction in the correlated color temperature from 3,500 to 3,000 K. Staff went ahead and took that extra step to suggest to the committee that perhaps that 3,000 K limit is the maximum for commercial, with a secondary maximum for residential sources. And further reduce the correlated color temperature for residential applications to 2,700 Kelvin. This is a suggestion based on the information that we've been provided thus far, and also recognizing that the more blue light that we can cut out of the new fixtures that are being installed, the further we would reduce potential sky glow impact.
That's good.
I recognize Craig.
Craig Barron. The issue I have in that statement in the first paragraph was lowering the residential to 2,700 degrees Kelvin. First of all, I would be hard pressed to find a manufacturer that will make a residential fixture available in 2,700 degrees Kelvin. You know, and the only thing we're talking about really from a residential standpoint are building mounted lights, which most of them are unshielded anyway, because that's all they can find at Home Depot and Lowe's and all that stuff. And then from a landscape lighting standpoint of unshielded light, they're not going to make any 2,700 degree LED lamps to fit into a landscape light, whether it's the unshielded or a shielded fixture. I mean, down the road there may be, but I don't believe there are that many. Charles, do you know any?
No, I don't agree. I think we can find them, and there will be more and more available going forward because of people like all of us. And in my own 100-unit HOA up here in the foothills, we have a lighting code, and you are required 2,700 or less. And I have 2,400 in my house. Because what if I have an astronomer over? What am I going to say? But I think it is possible, and it may be aspirational to some extent, but I don't think so. By the time we get this code done, I think we're right on point. And I really think that color temperature is very important here. And it's again, it's low-hanging fruit. Just push it to the warm. As far as the group feels we can go, I think you're speaking very rationally, and you're not wrong. But I can take you out and get you those lamps. If there are any retrofit styles, and now the ones that have the board on chip, they're also available in warmer and warmer tones. So anyway, I think we can work together on that and figure out.
All your neighbors still have the same color temperature as yours?
No, I'm under 27, so I'm allowed. And the maximum is 2,700. And if you don't conform, you get a letter. And if you don't change, you get a fine. This is public comment, so I don't want to say any more about it. So, but that's how we handled it locally.
Well, I think it's Arizona. Most people know how an HOA works. Everything's an HOA. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Dennis.
Just to hit that point, there's a lot more 2,700K available now than there has been in residential. And also even in the downlighting, both commercial and residential, it's becoming more available. So I've seen a lot more product, and it's like every 6 months, there's more and more. So there must be some demand for that lighting. And I think part of it is because really, if you compare it to the old incandescent source, really the 2,700 is the one that's closer to that compared to 3,000. In terms of old light fixtures and new product that is using a replaceable lamp, say with just an Edison socket, it's very easy to get 2,700K. That's all the lamps that are just marketed as soft white, they're 2,700K.
So go ahead, Clayton. Yeah. I want to recognize Rob. If you're helping us move on, do you mind if I recognize Rob?
It's related to this. So I just wanted to point out that staff made this recommendation based on a broad and quick research of technology that's available, also recognizing that it is not the most widely available, but this would put the city of Tucson, say, on that cutting edge of restricting sky glow in the ways that we can. It appears that there will still be some discussion on lumen caps, but again, reducing the color temperature would directly reduce potential sky glow, and this seems like an easy one to achieve that.
Great. Thank you so much, Clayton. I'm gonna recognize Rob and then we'll.
Craig, I use RC Lurie for most of my projects. I did check with them on the 2700K and just as Clayton said, more and more is coming online. I don't take issue to using the 2700. And I'm also good with the 3000. I'd also like to talk about, Charles, as a low hanging fruit and uplighting. I work in commercial development. We build projects that are typically retail, multifamily, mixed use, et cetera. We need to have some sort of excitement besides AstroTurf and signage, okay? So we do use a tiny bit of uplighting, so I don't think it's low hanging fruit. If we want to talk about people feeling better, there's ways that everybody feels better. Charles was talking about something when I walked in earlier, but we can't talk about that, but there's stuff more than just astronomy that makes people feel better, okay?
We'll come back to that later. I see Charles. I'm gonna go ahead and recognize Charles and let you say that. And then just for everyone in the room, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item, but I want to make sure Charles gets to respond.
Well, just, I agree with you. Commercial developers and many buildings want to have some uplighting. Okay. What can we, when we look at all of the different zones, that's where we have to get rational. You know, everybody has to give a little to make this work out. The goal being reduce the total number of lumens going up. And the low hanging fruit is the ones that point straight up. So tree uplighting in residential zones, it's not a good thing. And uplighting buildings is not a good thing because it's right there. So to how we handle that, you know, do we just cut it down a little? Do you try to dictate how it can be used for the right benefit? I don't know exactly how you do it, but we have to look at it, I think. I'm not disagreeing with you because I feel the same way, but I also have this goal in mind to really cut down. I mean, what the astronomers want is 10 years from now or 20 years from now to have fewer lumens going up than we have today. That's what we all want because we want Tucson to be unique and this to be exemplary of how to get there. So that means we got to look at every lumen. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Charles. All right, we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 8, which is our 2025 schedule, agenda items, and our meeting format. So I'm gonna hand that back to Clayton and Dan and let you guys lead that a little bit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Clayton. So we have scheduled out meetings on a monthly basis for the next few months. Those should be on your calendars already. And we just want to make sure that we are advancing the conversation in a stepwise fashion so that we can get the committee's consensus on specific items. So that to try and just make sure that we're hitting a target to get a new draft before the elected body, before the end of the year. Some of the items that I've heard today that should be on future agenda items are comparable city regulations, assessment of the Dark Sky International template. There was a little bit of talk about the IES standards, but I wasn't sure if that is actually should be on the agenda. And then we also have several sections in the current draft that we could begin to vote on individually, okay, to continue making progress at each meeting. Some of those items are the additions to existing properties, the definitions, deteriorated, destroyed, developed area, light trespass 401.3, optional compliance 401.5, illumination of the flag and motion sensing controls. we as staff would just recommend that we actually start putting some of these specific code sections on the agenda so that we can get a consensus vote and move forward.
The additions to different, to properties. I don't actually think we finished that. That is something we needed clarification from the building code on. Can we loop back and check that? We don't have to do that right this second, but if you and I can, you and I, Dan, can loop back and check on that. Because that was a spot we got really stuck with making sure we were not in conflict with the building code. And making it too difficult. If you remember, we had that visitor last year from the zoo. And that was a really huge barrier that we were trying to leap over, that we couldn't quite find a way to get over that. So we really do need someone from building code to step in and give us some advice. Before we present that to the public would be very helpful. To try to vote on it.
And we might tie developed area to that additions conversation.
Exactly. I think that we should do that on both. I feel like we got pretty far on developed area, but those were the last really two heavily outstanding items that we felt we wrote it, but I'm not sure we all felt really confident about that. How did you feel?
I thought we were getting there with the idea being that we could actually assign a developed area from a lighting code point of view, even if it wasn't otherwise needed for a project within a large lot. And I think we need to go there because it's just such a burden to have to do these full property surveys on big projects when really you just have a minor piece being altered.
Agreed.
And I think we finally got some buy-in from the observatory side, recognizing that it may not be as much of a risk as they thought it would be. I don't know that it's perfect, but I think it would really help the development community. Because as it is now, it's a real burden to do a small project on a big property.
I apologize. This is Bill. I have to leave for another meeting. I just wanted to say that I would appreciate having on some of the future meetings an agenda item where we talk about IES standards and how they are or are not consistent with the code, because I think it would help with the education process. So I wouldn't want to not be able to talk about it just by not having it on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry I have to run.
That's okay. Thank you, Beal. I'm gonna recognize Alec.
Thank you. This is Alex Zimmerman. And to kind of jump on that, designing of these renovations and smaller projects and having to take the task of calculating the whole developed acres of the parcel. One thing I think we should start thinking about, and I may be a little late as a new member, is egress lighting as you exit the building, right? There's plenty of projects where we just have to add a door, and per the building code, we need to have exit lighting. And to do so, to add a light, if it's not under a canopy or something like that, we have to do a full analysis of the entire site. So I think at least having a conversation about that is something I see on my side.
Thanks, Alec. So that's a good item for us to think about.
We're slightly off agenda, but
We are.
But we've already, that is addressed in the code. I can't remember the section, but we have an exception for adding a certain amount of low lumen fixtures on sites that are 5 acres and larger. That doesn't do you any good if you're on a 4.99 acre site.
Exactly. Or if you're not in the E3 zone or whatever, it calls out for a specific zone as well, right? So it's still limiting on the amount of projects that we work through. So
Yeah, we tried to, it was hard to even get that in. I'm trying to think what section that was in.
104.2, I think.
Yeah, it's an odd number. What I want to do is make sure we don't get so far off the agenda, but
Yeah.
I see Alec's comment, and I think we need to take that note and then we'll review it. And then subcommittee can work with Clayton and Dan, and we'll get an answer on that. either way, and then that's something we need to explore how to resolve that, because again, we're all laughing about 4.99 acres versus.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
I do have a comment on the scheduling. We need
Yeah.
to consider if the full committee is meeting monthly, then I think we need to get a subcommittee meeting between each full committee meeting.
Yes,
Because otherwise, we're just not gonna be addressing these things.
right, we're not making progress if we're
Or
not.
two,
we're not meeting.
depending on how much we have to do.
I agree.
So that requires a significant time commitment on the three of us.
Okay,
But,
we got it.
You mean have to give up a little of my golf game?
Yes.
No, scheduling around it.
Okay. That's on recording. Okay, so
It's okay.
we'll work with you to get the subcommittee meeting scheduled. I know there were some other things we want to do in the format of subcommittee. So we'll investigate that together offline and then get it scheduled. Because it needs to work for you too, since you have to be there now. Okay. Hi, Rob.
Then something, as you were talking about these 4.9 acres, what about projects? Is there anything currently, like if something's phased, if you design something at 3,000 and later the code changed to 2,500, then you got half a site at 3,000, half a site at 2,500, just looks unpleasant because the light levels are lesser or brighter. Is there anything about kind of phasing and staying with the same kelvins?
we haven't talked about that in subcommittee. And so presently, we're not thinking that way unless we try to address that. If the code were to reduce the Kelvin levels, then, the second phase of the project, the lighting would be different from the first phase. But that is what happened when the 2012 code became effective, because in the period from 2000 up to 2012, that lighting code put metal halide and high pressure sodium on equal footing. And a great number of jobs, particularly shopping center type projects, were done with and office building projects were done with all metal halide outside lighting. And that was a grave error made in the 2001 adoption process, but it's stuck until that point when we cut off at the 3,500K. So a project done there in 2012 and later, we'd be subject to the color temperature limitations. And that is definitely noticeable, but we're already there now doing that. So I don't know. The problem is if 3,000K isn't protecting the dark sky and we have to go warmer, then we're not doing our job saying that's what we have to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Good point. Okay. Do we have any more comments on the schedule, agenda items, or meeting we haven't talked about meeting format. I'm sorry. Let's talk about that for a second. So we've been having meetings as a hybrid meeting. And there is a question about whether we should continue to hold them as hybrid or if we should move back to our in-person format, which we did pre-pandemic. Do you mind if I have an opinion about that first out the gate?
Go for it.
My opinion is every member of this committee attended today because it was hybrid, which is fantastic. That is not something we have ever had happen since like pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah,
So,
there's always somebody missing.
it's incredible. So my opinion is there are a lot of benefits to it. There are still some kinks to work out and some things that can make it a little bit challenging, especially there can be technology challenges that we have to work out, although it's been going really well, in my opinion. You guys are amazing at figuring the problems out when they occur.
We only have so many meeting rooms though, so it's availability to be an issue, right?
Yeah, availability is definitely an issue, but if it's hybrid, we have to have the meeting room plus the Zoom anyway. I don't want to go back to Zoom only. Because I think we get ourselves in a little bit of trouble. But does anybody else have comments on the format?
I agree with you, Amy. Hybrid's probably best.
Yeah, this is Alec. Hybrid is best as well for schedules with the meetings being in the middle of the day. I'll obviously try to be there in person as much as possible, but I do want to comment that the audio has been absolutely fantastic from being on the call on this side of things.
Good job, Clayton.
Thank you. I also do want to acknowledge that I believe there's a bit of confusion. Apparently, some folks tried to join via Teams. This meeting is currently being conducted via Zoom. I'm glad all of the committee members were on this meeting, but do want to recognize we do have some improvements that need to be made. Appears there's been a little bit of confusion as to which hybrid format, but we, staff will make a much greater effort moving forward to ensure that's clear.
Okay. I see how that happened. I can see it. Okay. No, I appreciate you guys, and our city and county still on board with holding hybrid meetings as well. Okay, I just want to make sure that's.
And county definitely is on.
Perfect. So let's move on to section 9 of our agenda, which is the City of Tucson code enforcement, which this has been a very popular topic at every single one of our meetings. And I want to give Clayton the floor here to talk about this for just a second. We can talk about it more broadly, but I think we're going to need to keep this on the agenda, by the way, every single because we're going to need to keep formulating that and growing that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have the supervisor for code enforcement, the City of Tucson's code enforcement online today. Ms. Lori Pumphrey has joined us. We have a very open dialogue, okay? And I want to also point out that the entire code enforcement division has been recently relocated back into planning and development services. So there are some changes that are occurring. There's further improvements that we're making. And Lori has graciously joined to talk about some of those. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Pumphrey.
Hi, good afternoon, committee members. How are you today? I wanted to mention one thing we're doing. We're going to be adding lighting as a selection to our code enforcement violation report. Because we get complaints submitted through a variety of resources, not just through our online report, but we use an app called SeeClickFix, which is actually part of the 311 system. We would also have to make a modification there. So in case any complaints come in, they get routed appropriately. And otherwise, a majority of our calls come in via the phone, and those are easily sorted. An example of the number of code complaints we get related to lighting are, for example, the past year, we've got about 90 cases specifically related to some sort of lighting concern, primarily residential, light trespass on security lights, but we do get some commercial. And if anyone has questions for me, I'm here to answer anything.
I want to open the floor to the committee members. Do any of the committee members have questions for Lori? Sure, Rob.
Lori, any data on how many light complaints you maybe had in 2024 each month, or is anything you can publish via Clayton, just so the committee might have an idea of what sort of issues that the public's having?
Yeah, absolutely. I can provide that to Clayton. Well, like I said, going back to just a year ago to April 2024 to now, it's been about 90 that specifically reference lighting, but with adding this as a specific category that someone could select, that maybe that number would increase. But I'll be sure to provide that.
90, and what was the duration?
Basically April 1st, 2024 to today.
And how many complaints total? Do you happen to know that?
For overall, for all our concerns, I don't have that right at the moment for the same time frame.
Curious what percentage lighting versus others that there is?
To put it in perspective, we can average anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 complaints a year on average.
I mean, I think too, this is Amy, and I'm gonna make a, point of information. So for clarification for Rob, since I, weirdly, because I work at an observatory, not because I'm the chair of this committee, I get calls about lighting complaints all the time, but they would end up being directed to Dan because they mostly come out of Pima County, or to Santa Cruz County since we're on a county line. But I get enough of those, probably 2,000 a year. That come to me by any various means, phone call, people stop into the observatory, they send me an email. I don't know how many of them actually call Dan, but
Well,
I would probably hear about it.
no, well, I do get, this is Dan, I do get calls you refer to. I will talk to individual, I refer them to our code enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, which is, helpful. And why I want to say that, why I brought that up was just because that tells me how many people don't know, one, that there's a code. That happens a lot, and, or if they do know there's a code, they don't actually know who to call. And so a lot of our conversations around enforcement are also around education. Really educating people that there is a code and then what to do if there is a violation. And so Lori, I have a question for you that's more on the enforcement side of education. When you receive a complaint, this is for the whole committee, because I'm not sure, I know I have not seen this, and I'm not sure if anyone else on the committee has seen it, or at least not in a long time. When you receive a complaint, what happens thereafter? And is it just like a call or a visit, or are there materials that go out to the offender? How does that really work?
Well, after we receive a complaint, an inspector will be scheduled to go actually do a site visit. If it's something we think we can identify during the daytime, we're going to do that. If it's a matter of, a fixture having full cutoff or not, that sort of thing, or added unpermitted lights of an incorrect type, that sort of thing. A lot of them are going to have to be scheduled with our on-call inspectors, so we can view the light trespass or other violation in the dark. If we identify a violation, we provide both education, but also a notice of violation, giving them a certain amount of time to correct it. Maybe an extension if they are working on it. Ultimately, if the violation isn't corrected, we can issue a citation, which is a civil citation that goes through city court. We resolve it that way.
Would you be willing to, this is for education for this committee, would you be willing to share examples? Of course, what those documents look like, that education and that citation, and what those things look like, so we really understand. Has anyone ever seen that in here? Okay.
I'm
getting along.
in that.
Dennis just received some.
No, what happens is that we get hired by people because they've received the citation on outdoor lighting and they want us to get involved to resolve it. And so I think I've probably actually seen, but maybe not, I said citation, we're seeing a report from the inspector that says what's wrong. And then oftentimes what ends up happening is we'll end up preparing a set of plans that can be submitted to get a permit, which would resolve the non-conforming.
So that's good. If you, Lori, if you mind, giving Clayton examples to give us that we can learn, so we understand what that process looks like. You think that this committee, while our remit is to write a code, knowing how people are being cited and what they're being told at that end of it will help inform us and make sure that the code helps them to avoid meeting you.
Right, and I can also provide a flow chart of how we do business. So that might be helpful.
Yes, thank you. And Dan, it's the same. Is it identical, Dan?
Similar process. Ours is like, we have a complaint form. It'll go to the enforcement group, if I receive something, typically a lot of the fire districts send me stuff that
Would it be possible for us to see the same, that same sort of set of
Yep, right.
when they violate, so that we can all learn from that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do want to.
Oh, we do. Alec, I recognize you. I see you.
Thank you. This is Alec, and Lori, thank you for that information. Very helpful. I think to go along with Rob's point is it'd be helpful to know how many of those are commercial versus residential on those values if possible. And then the more difficult ask that I don't know if this is something Clayton can do because it is additional information, but complaints by lighting area zones to see where those actually are coming up, because I think that'd be interesting information to dive into and look at.
Yeah, there's a lot of good data when it comes to complaints.
Yep.
I served on the sign committee, and same topic came up, and I want to say over a 5-year period, there was 1,000 complaints. And the next question was, well, is that from multiple sources, or can you cite the sources? No, we cannot cite the sources, but like 90% came from one individual.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. So it's always good to know that, and obviously you can't pass addresses on and other things, but lighting zones would be super helpful. And in the way of not trying to create more work for everybody, I don't know, Dan, if that's something that can be provided from Pima County as well. It'd be another tool that we could use as we analyze the lighting code.
Madam Chair, this is Clayton. Alec, I want to just address your comment. Agree, super valuable to have more granular information, but I can tell you now, all of the lighting complaints inside the city of Tucson are in one lighting zone. Because the city of Tucson is one lighting zone, so you're not going to get that from the report from Lori, but that might.
So that was an easy one. Sorry to interrupt, but that was an easy one.
Alex, this is Dan. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I do know a good majority of our lighting complaints come from the Green Valley.
Green Valley.
No. it's
Maybe
not.
have
That's
them-
not surprising. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. That is not surprising. That's who calls me first. But same thing, and I don't know if it would be useful to Alec and Rob, but I mean, we do actually keep track. I can't tell you completely granular data, but I can generally say this person came and asked us a question and they were from Tucson. So I can tell you that. Obviously, if they're from Tucson, we know they're in one lighting zone. And then I could give you the cities, but I would have to then granularly go down and put the lighting zones otherwise. But I could do that. Those are not all formal complaints. I guess Dan and I would have to get together and compare notes at some juncture, but that would give you at least a base idea. That helps me just at the observatory to know how many people are asking us that information as we create educational materials.
You're not the AHJ, should be passing the complaints on to the AHJ,
We-
so there is better data.
Do not, so we don't take a complaint. We give them the information of the county and they need to go make the complaint. Yeah. Mhm. So we can't formally take a complaint. Which, puts me in an awkward position. So like, aren't you also the chair of the outdoor lighting code committee? I'm like, yes, but you still have to call the county.
Coming right now.
You still have to call the county. Perfect. Does anybody else have questions for Lori? Or Lori, do you have anything else you want to share with us?
That was it for today, but I'm available anytime for questions.
Thank you so much.
And this is Alec. I see Charles with his hand up still. I don't know if you're seeing that on your side.
I'm sorry, Charles.
It's tiny for my to see the hands.
Where's he at?
Oh, I joined by Teams.
Oh,
And it
you're-
worked fine.
Well, thank you, Alec, for seeing Charles's tiny bubble at the bottom. Charles, you have the floor.
Just a couple of quick things. One, all my questions were answered except for one that I may have missed. Are all the complaints or most of the complaints essentially about light trespass or brightness of my neighbor's light or sign? Are they like that? What are the complaints about?
I would say the majority of them are one they're similar to that. Yes, it's basically my neighbor's lights are pointed directly at my house and to my bedroom window, along that vein.
Okay, that's what I expected. I wanted to hear it. That's great. And then my second thing is just a little comment on the color temperature discussion of a few minutes ago. Will the good people of Tucson feel good about warmer color temperatures? Well, in our experience, many people, maybe most people, prefer the warmer color. Not always. I don't have good data on that. There may be good data out there. But there's another aspect to it, which gets into things you've already discussed just recently here too, which is public education. You know, we're all doing our part to preserve and improve dark skies while we do all the other things that we have to do as good stewards and good governance and good lighting. So part of doing our part is, well, we need warmer color temperature because it's better for humans, for dark skies, for plants, and for animals. And so there are lots of reasons to have warmer light at night. And that should be part of an education program, certainly the subject of a different meeting. But I think it behooves all of us to keep that in mind. The people have to understand we're doing this together. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. I don't see any other hands, but I'm gonna put that on Alec. Okay, thank you. Too many tiny bubbles. You can't see in this room, so you can't see what we're seeing. All right, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our call to the audience. We have any members of the audience today who would like to make comment or have questions? Great. I actually see Paula's hand is raised, so I'm going to yield the floor to Paula.
Thank you very much. I may be replicating what I think it was Charles Stone, am I correct? Just said, but there was a comment about the editing of the statement of purpose about the wildlife and the environment. I just wanted to say aloud that I think that will help also with public buy-in. Rather than this just being seen as something for astronomy. Forgive me, I forget if that initial paragraph also talks about human health. I heard somewhere the phrase today, so like all the astronomers really care about is the light going up, and I understand that, but I worry about the culture of focusing on that. So I just wanted to say I was really happy to have the environment, the ecosystem, the Sonoran Desert mentioned in that initial paragraph. And then unrelated, I used the link for this meeting that's on the OLCC website. Turned out to not get me to the right place. So when all that gets squared away, I'm going to guess the public might be using that web page link. So you might want to make sure that aligns. So thank you very much.
And Paula, I'm sorry, before you turn off your sound, would you, this is for everyone online. Most of you, we cannot see you or the entire name. So will you please say your name and what city or address you're hailing from today. And Paula, if you don't mind just repeating that for us.
Not at all. Here I am. My name's Paula Redinger. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and I happen to be a Pima County Master Naturalist.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next I see Christina McVie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things. First of all, in the summer of 2023, Science Magazine devoted an entire special edition to light pollution. I submitted that entire edition to staff at the time, and I would like to request that staff send that out to all of the committee members because I don't believe that happened at the time. I also wish to say that Public health and safety and the environment are very important to many of the citizens of Pima County. We've certainly spent enough money bonding for open space. We have a 30-year federal contract to protect it and to plan and balance our development accordingly through our multi-species conservation plan. And so we really support the changes to the intents and purposes. Next, I'd like to say that while I appreciate that the recommended changes in today's draft language are definitely an improvement, I concur with Mr. Stone. And I don't think he's probably seen that issue of Science Magazine, so if we could send that around, that would be useful. I think that going towards warmer lights is really key for both public health and safety, for wildlife, and for the astronomy community and the dark sky community. And we would encourage you to do so. And it seems to me that 27K should be the max for everything. And I've submitted comments before to that effect. And lastly, I just want to say that we really appreciate the hard work that this committee is doing. And so my name is Christina McBee. I reside just south of Arthur Park in Pima County. I serve on a number of county committees, including PAG's EPAC, Environmental Planning Advisory Committee. This is a topic that we will also be addressing this year. And I am interested in some of these panel members as perhaps a panel 4 presentation at EPAC. And I am the board chair of the Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection, as well as the previous conservation chair for the Tucson Audubon Society. And I've been working on comprehensive plans and codes since 1992 within Pima County and the city of Tucson. So thank you for your time.
Christina, Craig Barron here. You might want to, because it's been 2 years since you sent staff that article. You might want to consider acquiring it and sending it to them again.
I don't know if John Barentine is still on this call. He is. John, you had just sent out to the other group that was on another link. We were kind of discombobulated here at the beginning of the meeting. If you could put that in the chat, John, the link that you sent to May before, that would really be helpful. Thank you so much, all of you. And I think either John will get it to you or I will send it to Clayton and Dan and Angie and everybody else's name that I have. And then y'all can submit that. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing, I forgot. So yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, there was a proclamation declaring this week Dark Skies Week. I've also sent that proclamation text and the link in the YouTube presentation. It's at minute 49, and it was given to Sam Miller, who was erroneously identified as the chair of the Southern Arizona chapter of Dark Skies, but he is a board member. And his comments and Supervisor Grijalva's comments regarding Dark Skies, I would think would be of interest to both this committee and the public at large. And I would appreciate it if staff could circulate the links that I sent and the email I sent to you all regarding that today as well. And now I'm really done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. I want to recognize Joey Schwans.
Pima County Attractions and Tourism, and I oversee the leased property agreements we have with the fairgrounds and some of the racetracks out in the fairgrounds area, Old Tucson Desert Museum. We have existing Musco type lighting at the tracks out there. I was curious, would there be, if they have old style lighting, would that be grandfathered in, or would there be a mandate to convert any like athletic field type lighting with the new plan?
I can answer. This is Dennis. The code doesn't have anything about being retroactive, requiring legally installed non-conforming sources to continue in operation. So as long as the original lighting was permitted, and it can be continued.
Sorry, Joe, the only exception with that to that would be like if the wind came and carried it away. And
Right. What we're doing is working with facilities, with their energy consultant that's on staff as far as working with TEP on conversion programs for energy savings and to ensure that they have the proper shielding and that on the lighting. In the meantime,
You have lost your sound. Try.
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I just said that. Yeah, we are working with the properties as far as with conversion programs through TEP for more efficient lighting and switching over the older systems to LED in the meantime. But I was just curious with if we did have some that wasn't converted yet. So thanks with that.
All right, let's see. I recognize, it's like Kent.
Yes. Hi, Madam Chair and members of the committee and staff. Kent Blumenthal. I happen to be in Green Valley at the moment, and I volunteer as a commissioner on the Pima County Small Business Commission. I appreciate the work that the committee's doing. And I also want to commend Dan Ice, who has been very responsive in providing information to the commission and others to keep us informed as the Outdoor Lighting Code Committee proceeds in its work. A couple of things. One is that I was very pleased to hear on a couple of occasions during this meeting how an intention is to, over time, which would mean many years, to actually reduce the number of overall lumens in the county and the city and the use. And it seems that all of the emphasis would be put on the technical side, on the manufacturing side and the like. And I don't have census data in front of me, but there is growth is supposed to be pretty systematic over time in the county and the city, which will add more lighting, however many lumens per unit or parcel. So if that hasn't been an ingredient in your look-see to look at the future, to anticipate things, I would highly recommend that. I know I will do that. The other thing is, and the gentleman who just spoke about conversions, for the last couple of years in following the discussion and in public comments that have been made, not just by the Small Business Commission, but by others, there is the issue of the current practice, and since the initial inception of the code, for grandfathering in anything done before the code. And a response has been, on the whole, that, oh, it's too expensive, we're not going to go there, it's it becomes restrictive. And I believe that on the whole, that's short-sighted. It doesn't have to be for everybody. It could be something that applies in the more restrictive units based upon the turnover of title of property, particularly dealing with residential property, perhaps only with residential property. But I think when you're talking about the overall expense of purchasing property to bring outdoor lighting into compliance for that, and I'll speak only for residential right now, and I'm in the second most, I reside in the second most restrictive area. I think there's a play there, and I think that would be quite visionary, and I think it would get people's attention to at least have that conversation in earnest about those who care about in the long term of the dark skies in Pima County and Tucson. So I thank you all again very much for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for what you do here.
Thank you, Kent. Let's see, Bill Reed.
Hi there, can you hear me? I'm Bill Reed with the Catalina Foothills Association, and most of the complaints we get are from neighbors and their floodlights that they put up, or many times they'll just change their outdoor light to a 4,000 K or maybe or greater. Is there anything that we could do about that? Is that really a violation of the code? Or can you hear me?
We can't, I think we're all very thoughtfully considering your. I love the laugh. And actually Craig has come back. Bill, if you don't mind, because Craig has just walked into the conversation.
I'm going to turn my video off because I think it's chopping up the content. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My question was, the neighbors in the Catalina Foothills especially, they may replace their outdoor lights with one that's 4,000 K or greater, and we get complaints about that. And is there anything we could do about that? Is that really a violation since the permit's not required to change an outdoor light? Just the bulb?
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. This is Dennis Kuhn. So already the code prohibits the installation of a lamp in a fixture that's greater than 30, numerically than 30. So it would be a code violation to put a 4,000 K lamp into an existing light fixture. I believe we could potentially improve the wording in the code if, I don't think we have it already, but when old fixtures are relamped, they ought to be relamped with compliant, since it's a replaceable light bulb, you should be able to put in a lower Kelvin temperature, which is a better for dark sky and for environmental purposes. But 4,000 K would not comply with code. The only exception that would be if you had someone that had an installed fixture with a different, with the higher color temperature, and they can continue to maintain those old fixtures because they were legally permitted. I doubt you're going to see many of those on a residential property. Maybe somebody that had, say, a lighted tennis court at their home or some other facility like of that nature, they may have a very cool color temperature like 4,000 K or 5,000. And if that was installed with a permit, it could be continued to be used.
Okay, thank you very much. And as far as landscape lighting goes, that also should require a permit, shouldn't it? Because we see a lot of those blue light landscape lights.
I'm going to actually recognize Clayton and let him answer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city of Tucson does require a permit to increase the outdoor lighting on a property. And so if someone is increasing either the quantity of light or the color, correlated color temperature of their fixtures without a permit, they could be in violation. The proper procedure would be to file a complaint with either the city of Tucson's Code Enforcement Division or Pima County's Code Enforcement Division if you're outside of city limits, so that investigation to find if there's been a violation of the outdoor lighting.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the time and thanks for everything you do.
And then there's another hand.
There is. I'm sorry, I can't actually see all of the bubbles.
There's
It
only.
looks like there's Kent
They just
and
have-
Bill. but-
Yeah, I can help you with that as well. Bill Reed, it looks like, is the next person. This is Alex Zimmerman.
Bill just spoke, so is it Lisa?
Oh, sorry, Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Bill. I forgot to turn my hand off.
So Lisa Vickery, right? I think I just saw that pop up at the top. We're gonna recognize Lisa Vickery. Thank you, Alec.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Vickery. I'm a lighting designer here in town, and I live in a section that is in the E1A area. I have noticed that every once in a while, when I moved into this area, I'd never been in an HOA before. And I noticed in the CCRs, they do talk about outdoor lighting and what to do and what not to do. Well, the first thing I noticed is when people buy a house out here, first thing they do is hang those string lights. You know, the big bulbs, the ones that are unshielded and they're everywhere. And when somebody got in a conversation about that, people assume that it's the HOA that is pushing this. No one really understands out here that it is Pima County Code, or City of Tucson Pima County Code. And I have tried to educate people on occasion. I am a hated woman in the dog park. So is there ways to educate people very nicely? I tend to be blunt. As to this is actually code. This is not your HOA requiring this. This is code. You know, what is the best way to handle that conversation?
Sure, this is Dennis Kuhn.
Yes.
The code, both for City of Tucson and Pima County, the codes are readily available online. And if you do a Google search for Pima County Development Services or City of Tucson, and just put in outdoor lighting code, and it's,
oh yeah, I deal with the outdoor lighting code all the time. It's part of my job. So I do a lot of the parks designs and things. So I know where it's at. It's just getting other people to actually realize that no, this isn't some arbitrary rule.
yeah, well, the fact that it is a building code, it's part of the building codes that are, that's really what gives it the legal force. And,
yes.
And quite frankly, you can tell them that it's proper for somebody to file a complaint and talk to code enforcement, Tucson, to development services at the county, and they take those complaints and they will investigate them. And I agree with you, the use of the festoon lighting, it is rampant, not just in your area, but all over town. Darn near every restaurant that has an outdoor patio puts them up, and they're all in violation of code.
And I started really noticing it, you know, when I first moved out here, there were fewer houses. I've only been out in this section for about 2 years now. And I've started noticing sky glow when I go to work, when it wasn't there when I moved in. All up and down Ajo Highway. So, you know, it's noticeable.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so we have, I'm gonna drop to the bottom again. Kent Blumenthal, was your hand raised to make another comment, or did we just not drop your hand?
Sorry, I was searching for my mic. No, we're good. I had my moment there and on the mic. Thank you.
I want to skip over you. Can we just double check and make sure there's no one I'm not seeing? I guess I can make that Alex job, and then we'll loop back around. Is there anyone?
Here we go. Yeah, so it looks like Christina has raised her hand again.
Okay, all right, Christina McVie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 things. First of all, Madam Chair, you were talking about some of the educational materials that you have, that you utilize, and I am sure that there may be others that within your committee that have them. That would be so helpful to us in the community to be able to share some of those if they could be posted on the website for OLCC. We would love, the nonprofits that I work with, to be able to disseminate more information that came from a respected source so that the community we could help educate the community, because of course that's part of our job. And then the next thing I just wanted to say was, if you look in your chat, John Barentine from Dark Skies, Southern Arizona, has been kind enough to post that link to the 2023 Science Magazine Special Edition for your pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Alex, do we have anyone else? All right. Are there any comments or questions from inside the room? I didn't forget about you guys. Then I think we are ready to call this meeting to a close. Do I have?
I'm making a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
All right, we have a motion from Craig Barron to
We're
adjourn
done.
this
We're
meeting.
already done.
Okay, and we have a second
We're already done.
from Rob East. Do we need a vote or can I just close the meeting?
We're done.
All right, we're adjourning the meeting.
We're done.
Meeting is adjourned at 3:19.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Only 20 minutes late.
I think you